Yeah, so you see the title of the video. I literally have a friend who is a NEET, and honestly, I got to see in real time the complete devolution of him as a person until he no longer wanted to participate in society or even do better for himself, which is the most important thing. Of course, I won't reveal his real name, obviously, out of respect and, of course, out of privacy, but we're just gonna call him Benky. Let's go with Benky. And from my first person experience being at his house and seeing how he talks to his parents and how his parents would respond to like the straight level of disrespect that they would get from telling him to do something to just him deciding he wanted something, and when he wanted it now, was just like, yo, 12-year-old me is looking at this like this is a grown man child. And he was 12 himself. We were in the same grade, seventh grade, but he was saying some reckless stuff that, like, yo, if I was saying this to my parents, I wouldn't be making this video right now. I'll tell you that much. They would have either kicked my ass out on the streets or they would have unalived me, man. Because this boy was wilding. He would be like, oh, I want McDonald's while I'm in the car with him and his parents. And his parents will be like, oh, sorry, honey, we can't get you McDonald's right now. We're in the middle of doing X, Y, and Z. And then he just be like, but I want McDonald's now. Come on, can we just get McDonald's now? And he would keep insisting and insisting and demanding until his parents would just basically pussify themselves and roll over. And I would just look at his parents like, yo, what are y'all doing? 12-year-old me has better parenting sense than his actual parents. That's how bad his upbringing was, from the sense of like his parents don't actually know what they're doing. They don't put their foot down. They don't establish like dominance, you know, or give him any reason to show respect. And I'm not saying that fear is the only way to get respect, but as a parent, this has to be some level of fear, not too much, not like you're beating your kid or something like that, obviously. But there's got to be some level of like, I don't want to get on my dad's bad side, or I don't want to get on my mom's bad side, or else I'm going to find out pretty much. And the really strange part about this whole thing is like, if you met him in person, you would never think that at all about him. Like the first time I met him in seventh grade, he was a really chill, polite guy. You know, real friendly dude. He doesn't try to overstep his boundaries. And when it comes to women, he was always what you would consider, I guess you could say, the default quote unquote nice guy. So you would never think like, hey, when it comes to his parents, he treats them like shit, or he's this like obnoxious, entitled child. And then when I went to his house for the first time, it just threw me off. Like I felt like either I was in a dream and it wasn't actually real that I was even there, or like bro has a split identity that only pops up when he's at home. Seeing that behavior for the first time and how his parents didn't know how to handle it definitely gave me some like yellow flags. But I would say things got worse when a few years later, around 10th grade, when I was like 16, he got into an argument with his parents that got so bad, and it was over something so petty. I forgot what it was exactly, but it was either like they didn't want to buy him food for something, or it was something involving a video game. And I bring those two cases up because often those were two of the things he complained about with his parents. So, anyways, he apparently calls the cops on his parents because of the whole situation of not getting what he wanted. And then he goes outside in the middle of the night, in the middle of the city. You know, I'm from New York, man. It's not peaceful out here. And he walks all the way to my house. And I get a knock on my door, and I'm like, what's going on here? And I hear his voice, and I'm like, holy shit, it's him. It had me thinking like something happened to him, like, you know, maybe something happened to his family, him and his parents got evicted or something, I don't know. It turns out he just had a argument with his parents. When he came up, it was just him. I'm just kind of confused about the whole thing. And he was kind of vague on the whole reason that he even called the police on his parents and came all the way to my spot. That just goes to show you, like, you're clearly doing something wrong with this kid if you're raising him and he's on that type of energy. I'll never forget this day because his parents called me on the phone and they told me something very important that I will never forget to this day. So they asked how he was doing, of course. You know, he was chilling, watching the TV with me. I think it was on a weekend. I recall watching like Toonami or whatever when I was really big on Cartoon Network. You know, I'm like, he's doing fine right now. He's just chilling, watching the TV. And then his father tells me, oh, you know, we had this dispute over something, blah, blah, blah. The whole point is they acknowledge that they're bad parents. And then they told me straight to my face that they literally failed him. They raised him horribly. Instead of actually like doing something with that, they just tell a 16-year-old boy who's got school in the next morning. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe try changing the way you're parenting him because it's clearly not working out. And I don't understand how they let it get that bad. But the reality was something they were already aware of. And normally, you know, if somebody's not aware of something, you can cut them some slack. But deep down, I always had a slight resentment towards my friend's parents. They were good people, but the way they raised their son set him up for failure. Just wondering, like, what could go through somebody's head as a parent that you see all the red flags on your child, but even bigger red flags with how you're parenting them, and then you acknowledge this, knowing this fact, and did nothing about it. So unfortunately, they never really did try to, you know, turn things around before it was too late. And in a way, I lost my friend because after a while, you know, during our last years in high school, he eventually got into some type of altercation, which he never specified with who to this day. Which is lucky for that person because if we had known, me and my boys would have pulled up on him like the Avengers. But anyways, his mother ended up pulling him out of school to get homeschooled. Now they're cutting him off from like school and social interaction. And on top of his already poorly raised behavior, they were setting him up. Not intentionally, but you could just see that pulling him away from school to get homeschooled now, that's going to do a lot of damage to not just his mental state, but also his ability to interact with others. He spent his last year, you know, 12th grade, basically getting homeschooled. And, you know, he would still have me over and a few other friends every now and then. But eventually, as he got older, that circle dwindled and he started to become more of a shut-in. By the time we were like in our mid-20s, the guy basically kind of just gave up on having any friends physically around him, and all of his friends were basically from PlayStation Network. And so as his friend circle shriveled up, so did his interest in women. Now I want to be specific about this, real life women to be exact, because what he replaced that interest in has been nothing more than obsession since the day he traded those interests. He would definitely be classified as the nice guy type, the type that would say anything to please the girl, offer his lunch or something, just giving you an example, or saying he'll pay for something. He was definitely on that energy. He used to do this thing me and my friends would kind of laugh at where he'd go around the entire lunchroom trying to hug all the girls that he was, you know, definitely interested in. And it would just be kind of awkward because he had this weird way of giving them hugs. I can't really describe it to you, but you know, his intentions were good at the end of the day, but he wasn't very well versed with women. He was the typical type of guy that would fall for the be nice, be a gentleman, treat her with respect, don't try to get on her bad side type of behavior that you would typically expect from a nice guy. Unfortunately, as he got older and he became more withdrawn from society, and that includes women, to the point where he would send multiple pics of like Genshin Impact girls or Honkai Star Rail girls straight to our like chat and shit and literally just yap about the girls all day. Like I don't remember half of the stuff he talks about, but it was so much and so often that it was definitely an unhealthy obsession. To the point where during Fortnite game chats, he's telling me a whole story about one of the girls from Genshin Impact and like why this is his fourth or fifth place favorite girl. He even had them ranked down. Last girl he really had feelings for was this girl from our high school that I basically introduced him to when he was getting homeschooled. We'll just call her Lizzie. Very cool, down to earth, could hang out with the guys type of girl. She was pretty tomboyish, didn't have the typical traits of the average girl, so it made her stand out a lot in school. She definitely had a good amount of guys that were checking for her and whatnot. So I decided to introduce her to Benki, pretty much to just get him out of his little rut, and also at the same time kind of make him interested in real life women again. The good news, she was actually interested in him. The bad news, he would end up fumbling it because of everything else we mentioned, pretty much waving his giant building-sized glowing red flags, to the point where she just lost any chance of attraction for him, noticing how he talked to his parents, how demanding he was, his unwillingness to do things for himself. It was like that episode of South Park where Cartman is just literally taking a dump and his mother is pretty much just cleaning up after him. Yeah, that's what I think when I see that. Eventually, he confessed that he had a crush on her, but she had to shut that down real fast. After that, he pretty much fell into depression, I believed, because, well, he wasn't going outside much and he was kind of becoming the person he is now. And after that, he basically gave up on real life women and traded them for Hoyoverse girls. Yeah, and that's pretty much the end of his relationship with real women. Never looked back at them since. It's girls from video games or anime. That's the only thing he even talks or thinks about when it comes to women. Things only continue to be worse because after that he became more of a shut-in. His parents did nothing to really tell him to go outside more. And he eventually ended up abandoning the very interest that he wanted to take part in the future, such as being a train conductor. He used to have a fascination with trains. Like, you could ask him about a train model, especially if it was from New York City, and he would tell you everything about the train, including its history. I used to ask him that just out of random, because not only was it just cool to see him describe every single detail about trains, from the history to the physical details, but it was cool to see how passionate he was about that. He even had like model trains, from New York City. It was the coolest thing, man. And if there's one thing I really like seeing is somebody like strongly passionate about certain things. There's a beauty in seeing people have a really good reason to live for something. But that is no longer the case anymore. It has been probably about over 5 years since he's actually given a damn about being a train conductor and pretty much wanting to spend his life doing that. Nowadays, he just doesn't really bring that up anymore like he used to. But I hold out some hope that maybe one day that'll probably change and he'll finally decide to put that passion back in the forefront of his mind. Because it was really cool seeing how much he knew about it. And it was just like one of the few things that really put a smile on his face like no other thing in this world. I remember his father invited us to the beach, especially because he wanted to get Benki to just get some fresh air and finally get out the house. So Benki invited me, and then I invited two of my other friends from our school that he was cool with. And so, it was a good time. We were outside catching some sun, playing frisbee, football, and just generally hanging out. But Benki, unfortunately, was just chilling in the back and not really enjoying himself. It wasn't long until he just decided to start complaining and eventually saying, hey, I want to go home and can we get some McDonald's on the way, as he usually does. So with that said, his mother eventually folded and then his father folded after her, and we ended up only doing about 3, maybe 4 hours at the beach before having to go back home. But it's just a lesson that sometimes you can only do so much for someone. My other friends were pretty disappointed, if not mad at him, especially with the fact that it's like, hey, you're not only just staying on the sidelines, but then you're also complaining and crying about wanting to go home. And so we pretty much kind of kept our distance from him after that point. It's like there's nothing you can do, or at least nothing that we can do as his friends for the most part. We tried, and it's really up to his parents to kind of fix the damage that's done. Shouldn't be a burden that should be thrown on to his friends. But I understand that at this point, he's pretty far gone, and I don't know if there's a way that he's ever going to recover or be the person he once was, which is better than the person he is now. And the person he is now decided to trade reality for fantasy. You know, staying cooped up in his house playing video games for 12 hours plus. And listen, I love video games, but I know when it's time for me to put that work in the real world and actually find true joy and passion and things that really matter in the long term. And I get it, the world isn't a great place. You know, we got inflation, the job market is trash, AI is making things more difficult, and nothing really feels as authentic as it used to be. And life is full of suffering, unfortunately. But yet, not to sound like a masochist or a sadist, that suffering brings more meaning to your struggles, more meaning to your passions and your dreams. To say that you endured everything you did just to come out on top, it's got to be one of the greatest feelings ever. And it makes you stronger at the end of the day. But I have to give Benki's father credit though, because he really did try to some degree to make his son a better man. More than his mother, who kind of just sheltered him. Still, when it came to pushback, he wasn't really ready to face it from his son, and he would fold. And it's not like after that we fell out of contact with each other. We still regularly kept up with each other on PSN, Facebook, and Instagram. But, you know, just having him around as a physical presence no longer was the case. A little before the pandemic, I decided to pass by. You know, I was close in the area, so I decided to come by his house and see how he was doing. And it was a very awkward and just depressing experience because things felt the same, but not in the way that you would think. Like, I saw his mother again. She didn't look like she was in great health, but it was good to see that she was still alive. And when I went to his room finally, things felt exactly the same. Like, not in a good way. It felt like somebody was trying to hold on to a past that no longer was. A lot of the stuff that he had from like 10 years ago were still in the same place to some degree. And it also felt like he didn't really know how to socially interact with people anymore, not even his closest friends of over a decade. Talking to him, I would notice that he would always shift his eye contact away from me whenever I made direct eye contact with him. And he always had these body fidgets, like he was uncomfortable on a constant basis. It was weird. But his hygiene also took a hit. His lips were chapped and flaking. His hair was unkept and just, you could just tell like he didn't care about taking care of himself anymore, pretty much. And he also smelled bad. Like, he didn't take a shower in 5 days or something. And so I decided to hang out with him for 6 to 8 hours, you know, just catch up. But part of me just wanted to get the hell out of there. But yeah, anyways, guys, that's all I got for today. So be safe out there and stay blessed. I'll see you later.